Welcome, everyone. This is Joe Dager, the host of the Business 901 podcast. With me today is Cindy Barnes. Cindy is a business innovator, strategist, speaker, and notwithstanding, the founder of her UK-based company, Future Curve. She is also the author of Crafting and Delivering Your Value Proposition, which was, I kind of think, one of the original works and still a best-selling book on the subject of value propositions. I'd like to welcome you, Cindy. How is it over in the UK there?
Thank you very much, Joe, and it's a real pleasure to be on your program. So I'm really delighted to be here, and it's very cold and foggy here today in the UK.
The winter is set in, okay? But book, I think, was published in 2011. Before, at the start of this craze of delivering value propositions, just about. So, can you say what's changed in that time and why did that revolution happen?
Sure. It was actually earlier than that, Joe. It was actually, the book was published in 2009. You know, it's a long time ago now. Yeah, it's a long time ago. We focused on the topic of that book because it's about the value proposition being a total approach to a business, and a total approach to adding service design into the mix. And I think what's changed in that time is that people have heard about the term value proposition much, much more than they did before. But also, I think because of various software products, you know, Salesforce is one, I have to say, the term value proposition tends to get lumped in with product design, you know, or it tends to be the product, or it tends to be what I would call the sales proposition. I'm very, very keen to keep talking about the value proposition as the original intent, the original intent of how, you know, where the phrase was started from, that it's much more than just the sales proposition. It's much more than just the thing that you're going to sell.
Well, so can you maybe define what a value proposition is, since you kind of challenged where it went?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Our definition of what a value proposition is, and the original definition, the guy that originally developed the phrase value proposition was Michael Lanning back in the early 90s. And Michael Lanning's explanation of a value proposition, it was the focus of what you sell, but it's based on the whole company process. It's based on having the products, the services, the systems. It's based on, he didn't call it that then, but it's based on the customer experience. And we've taken that idea and we built on that idea. So our definition of a value proposition is it's the total sum of the offerings and customer experiences, how you deliver them to your customer at every interaction with the customer. So that means it's the products and services, it's how you deliver them, and it's the way in which you deliver them. So it's almost like a blueprint for how you're going to deliver your customer experience, but from the company point of view.
From the company's view, not, let's say, the customer's view.
But the development of it and the research behind it has to be based on the customer's view. It absolutely has to be based on the customer's view. So it's all the input is from the customer, and it's based on your capability, but it's effectively how you're going to deliver as an organization your customer experience.
Let's jump out there and say, what are some of the outcomes of developing a good value proposition? I mean, why should I?
Yeah, why should you? Because I tell you the number one thing that I say to people is it gives, as a company, and particularly smaller companies, startup companies, we do a lot of work with all sorts of different size of companies, from global corporates, but we do a lot of work with small companies and startup companies through the fantastic work that the Irish government are doing with supporting their startup companies in Ireland. The biggest thing that it gives smaller companies and startup companies is it gives them confidence. And that's something that is actually quite, it's incredibly important and very difficult to quantify. But I hear this time and time and time again. It gives us confidence that we know what we're doing. We know who we're doing it for. We know that we've got our customers in the mix and they're on side. and we know that we're all going in the same direction. Number one thing it gives you is confidence.
Well, I think it's interesting you say that and you bring up startups, because I always find startups, they have this idea, they develop their product, and then they have a very difficult time transitioning to market or proven product market fit. And is that hyphen between product and market fit, is that the value proposition?
Absolutely. It's absolutely one of the key inputs. Absolutely one of the key inputs. So we have a model in our first book. We developed a model for how you create a value proposition called the Value Proposition Builder, effectively, and it's got 6 stages. And the first stage is absolutely understanding the market, the sort of macro market and the more refined market. The second stage is absolutely understanding your customers, but from their perspective. And what you do is you put those two together. And then the third phase is look at what offerings and capabilities you have. So you're basically doing a matching of what the market wants, the market conditions, what the customers want from their perspective. And that's a key point in our research. And then you're bringing it together with the company capabilities and the company offerings. So it's a three-way fit.
Okay, well, how simple should one be? I always struggle with the fact that people, get this group of people together and we put all these Post-it notes on a wall and we develop a value proposition. I mean, simple it should be, and maybe how long should it take to create one?
I have a bit of a problem with a value proposition statement, because I think you can only distill things down to a sort of statement after you've done a lot of the work. And what I see time and time again is workshops and training and blah, 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 which just teaches you how to craft your value proposition, how to write your value proposition. And I have to say, from my experience, one of the issues has been that it's a stage particularly Salesforce.com actually has value proposition as a stage where you're supposed to put your value proposition in a sort of, little box. And that, I think, contributes to the problem that you've just got to come up with this sort of, I call it, people think it's like a silver bullet for sales. I'll come up with the magic words, I'll fire them at my customers like some sort of, hypnotic trance, and then they'll be hypnotized into buying from me. And that's a little bit of magical thinking. So I'm not steering away from having a statement, but what I'm saying is you've got to do the research and you've got to do the other work before you can distill it into something that really means something for you.
Well, I always kind of looked at the statement. Okay, now that you bring that up, I always kind of looked at the value proposition as something more overall.
Absolutely.
Okay, and do it. And then we could have, basic value statements underneath, which really, I mean, for lack of a better way, could be the thing that I lead with a cold call. It could be a heading in an email. It's a statement that I'm directly relating to this to this situation I'm in. Is that fair to say it that way?
Absolutely. So when we work with companies and we help them develop their value propositions, we have what we call a blueprint, which is, it goes into like the market area, and it goes into the customer experience area, and it goes into the offerings area, and it goes into various other areas. From that, we will pull out sales propositions. We call them sales propositions. So I think what many people call a value proposition, we would call a sales proposition.
Should I have multiple value propositions? I mean, one for each product, service?
I would have one if you can, depending on the size of the company. I'd have one per company. If you've got multiple divisions and multiple markets, I'd have one per market. You can then distill the different sales messages, sales propositions for different products and different sales opportunities. But the overarching value proposition design, you want to try and keep as high level as possible. Because what we see time and time again is that we see sales teams out there in the marketplace with with very little guidance, creating sales propositions almost in a vacuum, because there's no guidance coming from sort of further up, further in the organization. So absolutely, this is a strategic design for how to bring together the market, your customer experience, and your capabilities and offerings and develop a blueprint for you that gives you the confidence that actually you can really stand in this and you really know what you're doing, who you're going after, what they're looking for, then you can distill it into different sales propositions for different attributes of different products or different markets or different opportunities, different sales opportunities.
It about seems like you're nudging on to that vision, okay? Creating a vision, but value proposition is really more rooted in what you're doing. Is it, or is it sort of a vision thing?
It's much more rooted in what you're doing and how you're doing it, how you're delivering it as well. Because it's, how you're delivering it is critical, is absolutely critical. And the total customer experience is absolutely critical. I'll give you an example. If you have to go and have an MRI scan in a hospital, if you look at the work that some of the companies have, some of the current companies are doing, like Philips and like Siemens, they are redesigning the whole of that experience. So it's a much more customer-led experience. And so you go into the you used to go in for a scan, a CT scan or an MRI scan, and you'd have to navigate various different changing rooms, and then you'd go in and there would be lots of clutter everywhere and lots of files everywhere, and it would be quite a stressful experience because having something like that done is quite a stressful experience. And you'd go through all the admin stages, and then you'd go into various rooms where there were storage cupboards everywhere and this scanner in the middle, and you'd be plonked in the middle of this scanner and then left there while the radiologists go and do what they do, in some remote room from you. The whole experience is quite terrifying, absolutely quite terrifying, quite scary, but particularly for children. What has been done recently is they've looked at that as a whole experience, as the whole customer experience, and said, how can we change the perspective? And a lot of this is about changing perspective from what we do as an organization to how is the customer going to receive this? How is the customer going to experience this? Now, people talk about customer experience the whole time, but it's really an exercise in empathy. It's an exercise in understanding things from somebody else's point of view, but really seeing it through their eyes, really understanding it and feeling it through how they would feel it. And if you go into, certainly in the UK, if you go in for an MRI scan or a CT scan these days, it's a streamlined process and it's a clean process. And you have all the admin is done way before. So you're not stressed out. You go into these nice sort of, often lit with different color walkways. You go in, there's no clutter, there's no nothing. You have a nice changing room with nice, wooden floors, and it doesn't scare you. It's a very nice soft music playing, and you go into sort of wonderful room that's sort of lit, and you can have all different animations on the wall, or you can have films playing, and you can have music playing. The whole experience is like going to a spa, as opposed to going for this very frightening medical procedure. Now, the value proposition that the likes of Philips have put round their sort of medical devices division is very much one of understanding the customer experience and making that a stress-free and positive emotion experience, as opposed to, it was just a machine. It's just a machine that scans you and gives you a result. So that's a way of thinking about how value proposition has changed, and how the customer experience and really embodying that customer experience is absolutely key.
It sounds funny. What strikes me when you're talking, like we've transitioned from engineering to designing. Okay.
Absolutely. Do I often say to people, it's the difference between classic product innovation or product work, and this is customer-led innovation, effectively. So a lot of the customer experience work is like customer-led innovation, because it has to come from the customer experience, and it has to come from the customers, not just what customers think or clients think or patients think in the case of MRI scanning, but it's what do they feel? It's about emotions. It's about the whole experience, and you can't do the whole experience unless you really understand, they understand emotions, understand behavior.
Well,
Because, as you know, if you ask people what they want, they'll give you an answer, but it's invariably not really what they do want because they haven't really understood what might be possible. They haven't really understood. So you have to give people, different scenarios and watch them. And, the research involved in customer experience work and value proposition work is a different type of research. It's really understanding human behavior.
and I think that brings us to that other subject area that you're recognized for, which is customer centricity. And
Yeah.
can you tie that a little bit? Is that how we tie it, that last story, to the value proposition? Is that how they complement each other?
Absolutely. Because it has to be from the customer's perspective. So, it's that shift again. It's that complete 180 degree shift from looking at it from your perspective as a company to looking at it from the customer's perspective. And obviously those have got to match because you've got to fit your capabilities into what you're doing. You're not going to go and invent something maybe completely different. But it's about customer centricity and understanding the world from your customer's point of view.
Do this and we create this value proposition. How do we know when we get it right? Is it ever right? Maybe is there a way to validate it?
I think absolutely. You've got to test it with your customers. You've got to, first of all, you co-create it together with your customers through the research and through asking them and through, all that good stuff. And then you've got to test it with your customers as well. Absolutely. We always, we help our clients test the value proposition as well.
Well, I'm going to jump to my startups, and maybe not even a startup, but let's say a new product introduction for a company. How do I develop from something newer when I'm exploring new markets? Is there a way to that value proposition? Should that start like at the prototype stage or very early, or what's kind of my first steps when something's like brand new and new markets, new product?
Absolutely. Well, what I would advocate is absolutely doing some in-depth customer research, and the type of research that we do, and the type of research that I would advocate is got to be based on psychology and is got to be based on some anthropology. You're watching humans for human behavior and seeing how people do things, seeing how people behave, seeing how people respond to things. Now, traditional product design wouldn't have done that. It would have come from I've got this, a designer or an engineer or a scientist. I've got this fantastic idea and I believe that there's a market for this, and they'll go away and they'll work it up and then they'll deliver it to the market. And then, okay, does it work? They've left asking the customer or involving the customer too late in the process. Now, sometimes you're going to get a fluke sometimes, and you're going to get some fantastic wins out there. But I would advocate doing some in-depth research beforehand, as early on as you can, and involving customers in the process. So a real co-creation with customers, but certainly do the research, and certainly don't just do traditional research. You've got to include some psychology research, some anthropology research if you can, observing people's behavior, seeing how they use things, seeing what they like, what they don't like.
I guess this kind of leads into something. Your book was written before the value proposition craze, and even before the startup craze. Okay, happened.
I think we may have created the craze for value propositions. I think.
Yeah, and if you could write that book today, besides updating a few of the stories in it, what would you change?
I think I would focus more on making some of the tools and techniques more accessible. I think. When we wrote that book, we were coming at it from quite a technical perspective. So I think, we've learned a huge amount, and we have now done and worked with value proposition development and implementation in over 600 different companies. So I think if we were going to do it today, I think we've learned a lot about simplifying the process. And we've learned a lot about how you've got to have the whole company involved. You've got to have the whole company involved in the process. You can't, even large companies, we work with some, global organizations. And unless the senior people in the business unit or in the division are involved, it won't work. It won't happen. So our next book, which we've just finished writing, I'll give it a quick plug. I'll give it a quick plug now. There's a PDF of the front cover. It's called Selling Your Value Proposition, and the subtitle is How to Transform Your Business into a Selling Organization. Because one of the things we've learned through the value proposition work that we've been doing in these sort of 600 odd companies is that this is a sort of design blueprint for the organization of how you can turn the whole organization into a selling organization.
We don't want to say everybody needs to be selling the organization. We want everybody needs to be maybe expanding on the value of the organization gets.
Absolutely.
That'd be a better way to say it.
We've used that word, we've used the selling word deliberately, to be provocative here, because it is about making sure that everybody understands the role that they play in the customers' lives and how important customers are. Because if we don't have customers, we don't have a business. So, we've got some fantastic examples in the book and some fantastic case studies of purchasing departments, for instance, not being aligned with what the sales and marketing strategy is, and therefore crushing customer innovation because they didn't understand and they were just looking for the cheapest price on what they were doing. So that's what I mean by having the whole organization aligned. You've got to have the whole organization aligned to be a selling organization, but I'm using that deliberately. It's the whole organization aligned to be behind your customer, absolutely behind your customer.
Maybe we should go on a mission to make selling and sales a much better word than it's connotated now, right?
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with, we work a lot with professional services companies, and professional services companies are it's quite funny to us because they really will avoid using the word sales. It's like sales is a dirty word. And we say to them, if you don't have sales, you don't have a company,
What is something about the value proposition that maybe you'd like to add that I didn't ask?
I think the key to it is you can put lots of things into the mix. And the key to it is absolutely being ruthless with your prioritization of what ultimate things are of real value to the customer. So, I see companies that have maybe 20 different, I haven't got enough fingers here, but 20 different things. And, they want to cram everything into the value proposition blueprint and put everything in there. And we say, no. You've got to strip it out. Because I guarantee you, it's only probably that thing, and that thing that's absolutely of critical importance to your customer and your marketplace. So, particularly technical companies, and we work an awful lot with. I'm an engineer and physicist by background, and then did psychology and lots of other things. So we're very good at working with very technical companies. Because we understand technical companies, and technical companies are often the worst because they want to cram everything in. They want to cram all the technology, they want to cram all the technology in and everything that they've learned and all the fantastic stuff that they've learned in. But the key to this is actually stripping it out and just focusing on those few things that the customer really, really values. So prioritization is key.
Okay, now tell me a little bit about Future Curve and what areas do they cover?
Well, we focus on customer-centric, helping companies often move from a product-centric organization to a customer-centric organization. That's the big thing that we do. And in the process of that, one of the ways of doing that is help companies with the design of their value proposition, the design and implementation of their value proposition, because it's a good vehicle for helping companies move to being much more customer-centric. We do a massive amount of research. We've got social scientist researchers, psychology researchers, and anthropologist researchers. So to really understand customers from their perspectives, which is absolutely key. And we work globally. We work all over the world. We've have a fantastic partnership with the Irish government. We've been working with them since 2009, taking startup and smaller businesses through this process and helping them grow their exports, helping them grow in export markets, which is why Ireland is, I mean, it's a small country, but it still has the highest export growth of any EU country. So we're very proud of that association with the Irish government. But we work with companies of all sizes, all sectors.
Well, I would like to encourage everyone. I still use crafting, delivering your value proposition on a regular basis in my work. I still think it's a great book. I think I gave it away, okay, and it's on my Kindle now because I wasn't going to buy the hard copy again, okay? That way I can carry it with me. So
I'll send you one, Joe.
No. What's the best way for someone to contact you and learn more?
Please email me. Email is Cindy Barnes, all one word, CINDYBARNES @futurecurve.com, futurecurve as it sounds, or via Twitter or via LinkedIn. I was going to say LinkedIn. I'm increasingly not a big fan of LinkedIn, I have to say. Twitter's good. Email's good.
Well, I would like to thank you very much. This podcast will be available on the Business 901 iTunes Store and the Business 901 blog site. So thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much, Joe, for the invitation, and it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope it's been useful to your listeners as well.